Well, good morning. April has arrived, which means we have April showers in our future. Of course, the question always is whether there'll be rain or snow showers. Probably some of each. Foreign trade is important to the state of Michigan, and it probably comes as no surprise that Canada is Michigan's #1 trade partner. This morning we'll talk further about that and learn more about our neighbor to the north. It all starts right now.
From TV6, this is the Ryan Report. Now, here's your host, Don Ryan.
Well, Douglas George is the Consul General of Canada in Detroit. He is a career diplomat with over 30 years of experience and is widely recognized as one of Canada's trade policy experts. Mr. George is in the area in conjunction with a speaking engagement at the Economic Club of Marquette County and set aside time to visit us during his busy schedule. Mr. George, welcome to the Ryan Report.
Thank you.
Nice
Very
to have
pleased
you
to
with
be
us.
here. Yes.
First, let's give our audience a chance to get to know you. You're, as I mentioned, a career government worker, I think.
Yeah.
If I have my facts right, you started back in about 1982?
1982, I joined External Affairs as a career diplomat, and I've served abroad in Jamaica, Geneva for the GATT negotiations, Brussels, where I was a counselor of economic in our mission to the European Union. I've served as ambassador to Kuwait, and now I'm Consul General in Detroit. And I cover Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky.
Someone might make a humorous reference between Detroit and Kuwait. We'll avoid that. But that's a very interesting set of responsibilities you've had. One of them stand out as one of your favorite places to be? Let's leave Detroit out of the mix here.
Actually, Detroit's great, but Geneva was particularly interesting because I was one of Canada's negotiators and helped design the WTO institution.
Okay.
Brussels was fascinating because I was dealing with the European Union, and it's a major force unto itself, and is both a trading bloc, political bloc, social bloc, and it's got some very good aspects. They're going through some difficult times, and I have to say today that I was really shocked at what happened in Brussels. I traveled to the airport regularly. I traveled through the metro station that was bombed. This is terrible. Our Prime Minister has said he's outraged at what's happened. He and his wife extend their sympathies to the family and friends of those who were killed, and Canada has pledged its support to Belgium. Any support they need, we're there to provide it.
And certainly we all share those same feelings.
Yes.
It's a tragic kind of event. Looking at your bio, I found it interesting that you have a Bachelor of Science in Zoology. You must have had a different career plan when you started out.
Well, when I started, I grew up on the St. Clair River, which is part of the St. Lawrence Seaway system. And I thought I was going to become a fisheries scientist on the Great Lakes. And then I got somewhat diverted, took a master's in business administration, and I got diverted again and ended up in the Foreign Service as a diplomat. But I still get to use all my skills. Because I'm a scientist by training, I can talk to scientists, and because I know the Great Lakes, I have a great opportunity to talk with the Great Lakes scientists who are dealing with our shared stewardship of this important natural resource.
And some people might say politics is like a zoo anyway, so maybe the training is important there.
No comment.
Let's talk about, so people understand how the system works. First of all, Canada has an ambassador in Washington, but also these consulate offices around the country?
Yes, we have an ambassador and embassy in Washington, and I think we probably have the most important embassy in Washington because we're the United States' biggest partner. We have a new ambassador recently arrived. Sense of Style, he started on February 29th, and David McNaughton is our new ambassador, and he's very keen to come out and see the country. In addition to the embassy, which has a very large staff, we have 12 consulate generals around the country. Each of us deal with approximately 4 states, some more, some less, and we, the consul generals, are the senior diplomatic representatives in our region. So I regularly talk to the governors, I talk to senior officials, I talk to county municipal officials. I'm also dealing constantly with business, constantly with first responders, emergency teams, and I'm in essence the face of Canada in Michigan and my other states. So I'm regularly doing public affairs and advocacy.
And I'm sure that's a big part of your job, and I assume your office also must provide some service for Canadians in this country as well?
Yeah, that's our number one responsibility, is to assist Canadians either through getting them passports, or when they're in distress, when they've had an accident, when they've been jailed. That is, in fact, what we call consular responsibilities, and as you can see, it's part of the title. We also have a very large team that works on business development. So we help Canadian companies that want to access the United States market. We also help American companies that are looking for new and innovative technologies. Canada has quite a few. American companies that want to expand and might want to maybe set up an operation in Canada. We're here to improve the economic prosperity, in essence, of both countries.
Okay. And there are huge economic ties there. We'll talk about those and some other issues when we continue. Back with more on the Ryan Report after we take this break. Once again, our guest this morning is Douglas George with the Canadian Consul office in Detroit. We were talking about trade just before the break. I think people know there's a lot of trade that goes back and forth between the U.S. and Canada. Yeah. I doubt that they realize how big it actually is. I bet you have some statistics that probably could just roll off your lips.
Yes. Well, Canada is the United States' biggest customer. We buy more stuff from you than anyone else. You're our biggest customer. We sell more to you than anyone else. And so we have a huge trading relationship. 2014, it was $759 billion. Which works out to over $2 billion a day in goods and services crossing the border. $2 billion a day, $1.4 million a minute. And I'll let you calculate the trade for over this interview. Right. And there's 9 million U.S. jobs dependent on trade and investment with Canada. And if we look at Michigan, the trade is $69.7 billion, and nearly 260,000 Michiganders rely on their living for trade or investment with Canada. So it's very big. In fact, for Michigan, you sell more to Canada than the next 11 countries combined. So we're your biggest trading partner, and we're your best trading partner. We're close friends, and we have basically an interlinked economy where we make things together, whether it's automobiles or aerospace. We trade agricultural goods back and forth. We trade metals and minerals. It's almost like a single economy that just happens to have a border running through the middle of it.
Are there any issues that do negatively impact that trade? Are there things we could improve to make it even better?
There always are. When you have one of the biggest trading relationships in the world, there's always going to be the occasional hiccup. For example, softwood lumber remains an issue, and it's a dispute that started in 1981 and has kept going in various forms ever since. And when our Prime Minister was in Washington to meet with President Obama, one of the things they agreed is that they would make strides to try and resolve this issue.
At one point, you were involved in this as well, weren't you?
Yes, I was one of the people who managed the file. Because it's been going on for so long, you never actually think you're the final person dealing with it. But I got to deal with it for 3 years, and I micromanaged $11 billion in exports from Canada to the United States, in that a Canadian company could not sell its product unless it had permission from me.
What is the essence of the problem?
Well, the essence of the problem is that softwood lumber, that's the lumber 2x4s, 2x6, 2x8, used to build houses. And Canada and Canada is the second biggest supplier to the U.S. The U.S. supplies about 70 to 80% of its own market. Canada was supplying 25% at the time this dispute started. And a lawyer went to the U.S. industry and said, in essence, that he would work to impede imports from Canada, which would raise the price of lumber and raise the profits of the companies.
Okay.
And he's been doing this on and off, sometimes successfully, sometimes not, since 1981. But it's an issue that I think is in both of our interests. We want to sell you lumber, and the consumers of the United States want to buy Canadian lumber because it lowers the price of lumber in the U.S. and lowers the cost of housing. So we have an interest on both sides to resolve this and resolve it quickly. We always have some issue or other. For a while we had a KXL issue, and it's the nature that, you know, we will continue to deal with issues. Now, the nice thing about being Canadians and Americans is we don't fight over it. We go through, we have rules, we have systems, and we work together to resolve issues. You know, we might not always like the answer, but we've gone through legal processes, and we respect what comes out at the end.
Another big part of the economics is tourism, and there are a tremendous number of tourists going both ways. What I noticed a figure of over 2 million Canadians visiting the United States annually, for example.
Yes, well, it's I think that was 2 million just coming here to Michigan.
Maybe it was. You're right, it was Michigan.
Yeah, and we Canadian tourists last year we have statistics for is 2013, but there was nearly 2.5 million people, and they spent nearly $500 million in Michigan. It's close. It's got lots of exciting things to see. It's got great natural preserves. It's got a great hockey team in Detroit. Now, largely Canadians, of course. No, there's a lot going on here, and Canadians love to visit. Okay. Now, when the weather gets cold, much like the people in Michigan, Canadians will go to the south of the U.S.
South.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to take a break and talk about how border security is affecting both trade and tourism. Back with more on the Ryan Report in just 2 minutes. We're talking about relations with our neighbor to the north, with Douglas George from the Detroit office of the Canadian Consul. We were talking a little bit about border security and trade and tourism. How are we doing? You know, are we doing the best we can to both be secure and keep both of our countries safe, but still allow trade to occur and visits to occur?
Well, that's been a major focus since 9/11, when the border got very thick. It was much harder to move across the border post 9/11. And so what we've been working on together is to find ways of increasing security while at the same time allowing trade to move easier. And we have things like Trusted Trader, Trusted Traveler programs where you will check out the traveler, or you'll check out the trader, make sure that, and both sides do the checks, make sure that they're trusted. And that means that when they reach the border with the special card, they can move through more quickly because you know that they're not a problem. That allows the same number of customs agents to concentrate, frees up some of their time to concentrate on the more, the uncertainties, the higher risk groups. So we have been doing that. We've also been doing programs like Shiprider, where we have joint patrols on the Great Lakes that have U.S. Coast Guard and Canadian RCMP officers who are deputized into each other's service. So if they're chasing a suspect and the suspect crosses the imaginary line in the middle of the river, which is the border, in the past they used to have to stop. Now they can keep going and they can arrest this person. And so we're working together in a number of ways, including sharing of intelligence, to make sure that we're jointly securing our borders and jointly managing the space.
But it probably will never be as easy as it was back in the days when someone in Upper Michigan might say, let's go over to Sioux, Canada today and just visit and kind of a spur of the moment thing.
Well, when I was growing up, we grew up on the St. Clair River. There was a really good ice cream parlor on the U.S. side. We would just call U.S. Customs, get permission to go over.
Sure.
And when we had our ice cream and got back, we'd call Canada Customs to say we'd gone over and come back. That doesn't happen anymore.
No.
No.
Speaking about getting back and forth, the Gordie Howe International Bridge.
Yes.
How are we coming? This has been a controversial project, but hopefully now it's moving forward. Is that
Yeah.
fair to say?
Yeah, it's fair. We have set up a corporation, the Windsor-Detroit Bridge Authority, which will oversee building of the bridge through a private sector partner. We have an international authority that has 3 Michiganders, 3 Canadians that oversee the project. We've already gone through the first stage of finding out who is interested in building it. We had 6 international consortia express an interest in building the bridge. We've chosen the 3 most qualified. We'll ask them to prepare a proposal to design, build, operate, and maintain the bridge. And in 2017, we will choose the winner, and they will go ahead and build the bridge. Our current best estimate is the bridge will be open for traffic in 2020.
Okay.
And it's vitally important. As I said, Canada and the U.S. are each other's biggest customers. We have a huge trading relationship. Fully 25% of the goods that cross the border cross over the Ambassador Bridge between Detroit and Windsor, and that's an 86-year-old bridge. It's aging infrastructure. It's a choke point, and both countries agreed we needed another bridge for efficiency, for security, and for redundancy. And for the people of Michigan, I'll repeat again, Canada is paying Michigan's share. So it's going to cost Michigan $0.00 for this bridge. And once the private sector partner in Canada are paid off, Michigan will own half the bridge and share in half the profits.
Perhaps we can get Canada involved in the Sioux Locks. I know you were visiting there a short time ago. Talk about building a new lock at the Sioux Locks.
Yeah.
There was a recent report that a 6-month shutdown of the Sioux Locks could put the U.S. into a recession. I assume Canadians would share that same concern.
Yes, well, the goods that pass through the Sioux Locks are vital to the auto industry and other industries, and I was there talking to them, getting a briefing on what's going on, and obviously this is an important issue. This one is one because it's wholly within the United States. It's one for the
Right.
U.S. to fund.
Right.
Canada isn't going to fund this one, but we're very interested in what's going ahead, and I now better understand the issue.
Okay. We have only 30 seconds left. Any final thoughts you'd like to share?
Just that it's great to be in this job. I get to talk about positive things, and Canada and the U.S., Canada and Michigan have been friends, allies, and partners, and I hope that continues into the future.
And we not take each other for granted.
No, we never take each other for granted.
Okay. Well, thanks very much for coming in and visiting with us this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you, and it's great to be here.
Okay. I'll be back with more on the Ryan Report after we take this break. A few weeks ago, I said I was going to share one more memory about the March of Dimes telethons that were an annual event during the early years here at TV6. As I said last time, they were more than simply a telethon. The broadcast was a UP happening. The activity started at 11 on a Saturday night and was non-stop until 5 or 6 on Sunday evening. All of the entertainment on the show was provided by local talent appearing in the TV6 studios. Of all the talent to appear on the show, there is one act that came back year after year and stole the show. The fact is, each year, when we started promoting the telethon, the one question I received more than any other was this: is the guy who tears off his shirt going to be there again this year? If you ever watched one of the telethons, I'm sure you remember him, but for those who never had that opportunity, the person in question was named Bill Leaphart, the owner of Bildo's Bar in the little community of Daggett in south central Upper Michigan. Bill was back every year. He did the same thing every year, and people loved it every year. They never got tired of it. Here's what it was about. Around that time, there was a popular singer on the national scene named Johnny Ray, who could really belt out a romantic ballad. He was an unusual act, and sometimes during live performances, he would beat up his piano or lie on the floor as if he were in pain, and add a lot of animation to his singing. One of Johnny Ray's biggest hits was a song called Cry. I'm not going to sing it, but it starts out, "If your sweetheart sends a letter of goodbye, it's no secret you'll feel better if you cry." Well, if you search the internet, it's easy to find. Bill Leaphart's telethon performance each year involved him pantomiming Johnny Ray singing Cry. And just like Ray, the first half of the song was pretty laid back, but then it really started to build, and that's when Bill Leaphart went into high gear as he captured the drama of the music. First his coat came off, then his tie, and finally he would literally rip his shirt off in pieces. It made for great small-town television, and people waited for it every year. Even today, I'll occasionally get a call from someone with the question, "Who was that guy who used to rip his shirt off on the March of Dimes telethon?" The American Telethon holds a very special place in television history, and the original March of Dimes event certainly earned that distinction. While these shows have pretty much faded from the television landscape, I know a lot of people who were around to watch the telethon in the 50s and 60s would be pretty excited to see Bill Leaphart tear off his shirt just one more time. I'll be back in 2 minutes. The Today Show is about to move in, so it's time for us to move out. Let me remind you that you can also watch this report on the internet. Just go to uppermichigansource.com and click on the Features tab. The most recent show is usually available on Monday afternoon, and you can find several past episodes available as well. Thanks to Douglas George, the Consul General of Canada in Detroit, for joining us this morning. Canada is an important partner of Michigan and the U.S., and it's always interesting to get a Canadian perspective on that issue. I want to thank you for joining us this morning and let you know that I look forward to seeing you again right here next Sunday morning.